it's really interesting to me, and we touch on this with him. Donovan Mitchell comes in this trade, and my immediate thought was, how is this going to affect Garland? And Bickerstaff and Donovan Mitchell and Darius, to his credit as well, have figured out how to make this work seamlessly. And it's actually uncanny. His usage rate stayed basically the same to last year. His counting stats and his efficiency stayed the same to last year. To me, he's having another all-star caliber season.
Yeah. So a question for you. Our favorite stat, Raptor, was on there earlier today. Darius and Donovan are tied for 10th in Raptor currently. The only team that has two guys in the top 10 are the Cavaliers. So I want to hear your thoughts and sort of where they are right now in general, but clearly that sort of means that the guy's having an all-star season. But also, is that a thing that is promising for them looking forward as we start to talk about the playoffs and where they are, heading into April and May?
I'm very high on this team. I want to be very clear on that. And the metrics suggest that they're better than their record. They have the number 1 overall defense. Before last night, they were a top 10 offense. They're 11th today, second best net rating. They're just 5th in the East. Their core group of guys, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, they're all under 26 years old. The future is very bright for this team and this franchise. They to me, have a great coach in JB Bickerstaff. Their issue has been clutch games. They're 16-15 after last night's loss to Miami in clutch games. Miami, by the way, won their 20th clutch game of the season last night. They're coming on strong. They're only, I believe, a game back now in the loss column of the Cavaliers for 5th place. They're playing really well. Bam's playing great. Jimmy, Tyler Hero, all that stuff. So this to me is the problem with the Cavs right now, is who that 5th closer is. And their offense tends to stagnate. And I think some of this is the decision JB Bickerstaff has about who to place in that 5th spot at the end of games. Karis LeVert, great player. His skill set is a little bit redundant with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland because those guys all need the ball. So his skill set doesn't complement those guys. And you know that Mitchell and Garland are going to have the ball in their hands at the end of the game. Okoro and Stevens, there's some defensive prowess there, but not necessarily the spacing, the three-point shooting that you would need. Cedi Osman, who has had big games, not a knock. You lose some things defensively with him, and he's never really been that consistent 40+% shooter over the course of his career. I think this team is active at the trade deadline.
Yep.
And if they add the right guy to be the 5th guy, I think they're a real contender in the East. As currently constructed, I don't have them in tier 1. I think that's fair, even though those metrics I listed, they're great. I think they're a great basketball team. I like what they're building. To me, they need to make a deal at the deadline.
Besides clutch scoring or clutch games, they're 25th in rebounding. Do you feel like that is another place where they look at the deadline? And are you a little surprised by that when we talk about the size of this front court?
Well, I'm not surprised. It's interesting because I brought up Garland and his counting numbers. Jared Allen basically has the same counting numbers as last year. Evan Mobley does too. We have talked a ton about Evan Mobley at different times. We talk with Garland and we talk with JB about Evan Mobley. If he can become a double-double guy, I think that shifts a little bit. And I also think having 2 smaller guards affects rebounding.
Yeah.
Mitchell is a fine defensive rebounder over the course of his career, whether it's 3.5 to 4.5 rebounds a game. It's fine for a guard. Garland's, I think, under 3 rebounds a game. So they haven't, in terms of the defensive rating side, they haven't dropped off. The rebounding has been an issue. Bickerstaff, I want to touch on him real briefly because I think he's done a fantastic job, and we bring this up with him. He took over in season for the Houston Rockets. Kevin McHale. He took over in season for the Memphis Grizzlies. Took over for David Fizdale, and currently he's with the Cavs. He took over in season for the Cavs and took over for John Beilein. And it feels like he's finally established himself in a great place with a great culture, with a front office that trusts him, with a timeline that works for him.
Yeah.
And it came across to me, clearly knows a lot about basketball, The guy's got incredible people skills.
Yeah, I mean, Darius mentions it. I think we knew this before, but it was interesting to hear it from him. I mean, Donovan actually talked about it when we did the pod with him in the fall, even though he'd just gotten there, about how good JB is at talking to them. And you almost can't take it for granted because not every coach is like that.
Exactly. Real briefly, I do want to touch on the impact of Donovan Mitchell because last year this was a team that surprised a lot of people with their early season success. Jared Allen got hurt towards the end of the season. They tailed off. They ended up in the play-in game, but they were a 4, 5, 6 seed for much of the regular season. I think it's really interesting when you look at DraftKings Sportsbook and how the Donovan Mitchell trade affected the Cleveland Cavaliers championship and Eastern Conference odds. When the championship odds opened at DraftKings last May, they were at plus 10,000. Right before they traded for Donovan, they were at plus 9,000. The day after the trade, they moved to plus 3,500. They're currently at plus 2,500. They have the 11th most money bet on them of any team for the championship. 4th most in the East. Same thing. You see the same shift before and after the Donovan Mitchell trade, plus 3,000 on August 31st. On September 1st, plus 1,600 after the Donovan Mitchell trade. They're currently sitting at plus 1,200. Again, I think those odds shift if they get a really good complementary piece on the wing.
They're an interesting bet because of how well they've played the Celtics. They're just interesting. I think that they've been frustrating at times for their fans. I think the game against Miami last night was a good example of this. It's a game they probably should have won. But to your point, they have all the talent in the world, and if they can add that complementary piece, they don't have a lot of holes.
I also really believe this, and it's something I mention all the time on the podcast, on ESPN. I believe in culture, and I believe that this team has culture. We were very fortunate to spend some time with Donovan in person in October in Cleveland. Prior to sitting down with him, we spent some time at the practice facility. We actually watched them do their post-practice shooting, spent some time with Mike Ganzi and Kobe Altman and our boy Kevin Love. And it's clear to me that this team is building a championship culture.
Yep.
And I think that really matters.
And I think you guys will see with this Darius interview. I mean, what a great dude. What a nice kid. It's just amazing.
A better player
yes.
than Bones Highland. But the smile and the energy, the whole interview, it's Bones-esque, and I appreciate that. NBA fans, it's time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Download the app now and sign up with code JJ. New customers can bet $5 on the NBA and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code JJ. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.